Hi, everybody. Jay Privman, the national correspondent with Daily Racing Form, joined by Mike Watchmaker. He's the national handicapper with Daily Racing Form, and we're going to take a look at the two races from last weekend that were the final two races on the road to the Derby and that impacted our top 20 for this week. Mike, let's start with the Arkansas Derby because the top three finishers out of this race are on our list. Give me your thoughts on all three, but let's go in order, beginning with the victorious Magnum Moon.
Well, Jay, you and I both like Magnum Moon quite a lot all spring, and he did everything you could have asked for in the Arkansas Derby. He was very good. He won by 4 lengths, got a 98 Beyer speed figure. He's now 4 for 4. He's still a little bit green, as he showed in the stretch, and once he gets that sorted out, I think he's eligible to take another significant step forward. He is very much the eastern half of the country counterpart to Justify in that, they both were unraced last year at 2. This is a very serious double-barreled threat to bring down the 136-year streak of no Derby winner not having raced as a 2-year-old.
I like this horse a lot, Mike. He's 4 for 4 now. He's had one more race than Justify because he started his career a month earlier. I am disturbed, though, by the way he's drifted out in his last couple starts. It wasn't so bad in the Rebel, but it was much more pronounced in the Arkansas Derby. And you're not going to be able to get away with anything close to that in the Kentucky Derby, as strong as this field is. So I'd like to see that part of his performance cleaned up. That's the one knock I've got on his race from the other day. Did that bother you in any way?
Well, I think he's just kind of green. I mean, I don't think he is. Apparently, he's not as mentally advanced as Justify is. I mean, Justify is a freak. This horse, understandably, for horses only run 4 times, still doesn't know what it's all about yet. And it's a scary prospect to think how good and how effective he might be when he really does finally get it all together. And if that happens in the Derby, we could be in for a real treat.
Let's take a look at the other two horses that followed him home in this race. Quip, who finished second, Solimini, who finished third. Your thoughts on their performances?
Quip was basically second best. He was game holding on to the place. He's a nice horse. He's going to have to take a step forward to be a contender in the Kentucky Derby. He will be making his 3rd start of the year in the Kentucky Derby, so he's eligible to take a step forward. He pretty much held his form from his Tampa Bay Derby win to the Arkansas Derby, and both of these races showed that he is definitely improved as a 3-year-old over his fairly decent 2-year-old form. As for Solimini, you said it all spring, Jay, and you're right. He's a grinder. But he's also stuck in a really bad rut because his last 6 Beyer figures, his last 5 Beyer figures are 92, 92, 93, 93, and a 90. I mean, I think we know what Solimini is right now, and that's not good enough to win the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, he's definitely going to have to take a step forward to be a win player in the Kentucky Derby. Let's look at the last race that impacted our Derby Watch Top 20, and that was the Lexington Stakes. My boy Jack ran in this race. He wasn't originally scheduled to run here, but because of the way the point standings were shaping up going into last weekend, they ran him. He needed a 1-2 finish to assure he had enough points, and he got the 1. He was victorious in this race. But Mike, to me, he's a nice horse. I like that he runs a lot. He'll be the most experienced horse in the Derby with 10 starts. But it just seems to me that, like, the last part of the race, he just kind of doesn't finish off his races as well as you'd want to. Now, granted, he won last week, but I'm not so sure that going out to a 1.125 or a 1.25 miles is going to suit him. I think he might be a 2-turn blast home miler kind of horse. What do you think of him?
Well, you might be right, Jay. My concern is I just don't know that he's good enough to be a contender in the Kentucky Derby. I mean, his 2 prior efforts were enhanced by race circumstances, his narrowly beaten 3rd in the Louisiana Derby, or track bias, his win in the Southwest. Everything was fair in the Lexington, and he got up and he won it, but he tailed off by 4 Beyer points. I mean, he went from a 94 in his 3rd place finish in the Louisiana Derby down to a 90 in the Lexington, and that's just not good enough. I mean, so what that tells me is if circumstances aren't heavily tilted in my boy Jack's favor, he's kind of a slow horse compared to the rest of his contemporaries here. And I think that means he's in trouble at Churchill Downs on the first Saturday in May.
You know, Mike, one thing we can say in his favor is it doesn't seem to matter where he runs. He's run decent races at Santa Anita, at Oaklawn, at Keeneland, and at Fairgrounds this year. So going on to Churchill Downs, that shouldn't be a problem for him. He seems to adjust to wherever he goes. But your point about whether he's good enough is certainly a very valid one, because this is shaping up as one of the strongest derbies we've seen in an awfully long time. Well, Mike and I will be back next week to continue our updates as we get closer and closer to the Kentucky Derby. For Mike Watchmaker, I'm Jay Privman. Thanks for watching.